Welcome, everyone. We're just going to get started in a couple of minutes. If you feel like it, just share where you're joining us from in the chat on whatever platform you're joining us. That would be great, whether it's YouTube or Facebook. We'd love to hear from you. And we'll get started in just a couple of minutes.
Randy, I love how you're bobbing to the music right now. Like,
I've got to stand. I have to stand up when I'm doing these things, so I put my desk up so I can dance. Again, thanks everybody for joining us. We're glad you're here, and we've got a lot of great speakers coming up for you to listen to, and we're very happy you're here. This is a really great, fun crew of people that I'm happy to work with every day.
And
joining us. Go ahead. Sorry, Liz.
Thank you, Randy. My name is Liz Pilato, and I'm going to be joining with Randy today as your MC. I just wanted to appreciate everyone who is joining us from Facebook and YouTube, and remind you that you can also share this with folks. So you can hit that share button if you are on Facebook, and invite friends to join you in learning more about what you can do. And appreciative of all the comments we're getting. I'm also just curious to hear from folks how you're feeling about the election. So where are you from? How are you feeling about this year's election? Seeing folks from Kansas City, Missouri, Sarah in Portland, thank you for joining.
Looks like we got a broad spectrum from all over the country. That's awesome.
Well, I think that we should go ahead and get ready. What do you think, Randy? Get started, Randy.
Yeah,
what do you think?
We're good. I think we should, yes.
I did like that music, but I'm also so excited to have folks here. We're streaming live across the country on YouTube and Facebook, and wanted to let you know a little bit about what we're going to be doing today. So if we can just go to the next slide. I just wanted to actually also call in our theme here. So why bees? Well, we are really looking to nature for examples of cooperation and people coming together in community. As an antidote to despair, we're looking for what we can see in nature that will offer us hope. And we're going to be offering a lot of hope during the course of this call. We want to welcome you, give you a strategy overview, and then offer you some stories from the field of times when our work has really mattered, and how your contribution can be a big part of making a difference this cycle. We're going to give you a lot of opportunities to join us, and we're going to actually even invite you to join us right away. So at the end of the hour today, wherever you are, you could join us on a phone bank and get started right away. And we're going to give you share some stories from folks who have been on our phone banks and helping to organize our phone banks, so you can find out a little bit more about what that's like. And then we're going to ask you to invite some friends. And then we're going to give you some information about how you can fly on over with us to our phone bank that's going to be happening at the top of the hour. So I'm so excited for everyone who's here. Grateful for people who are sharing their experiences in the chat about what matters to them, why they're find this important. I'm going to turn it over to Randy to take us into a little bit of how we're going to organize our approach for this meeting.
Sure. Thank you, Liz. We have the next slide. Just a little bit of, we just want to make sure we're engaging with kindness in this. We want to let you know racism, misogyny, xenophobia, and hate will not be tolerated in the chat. If you're excited about something or something resonates with you, just put a couple pluses in the chat. We'd love to see that. And we're asking you to like limit your sidebar conversations or repetitive comments and things like that. If you agree with these, just put some pluses in the chat for us. That would be helpful. We also want to, as Liz mentioned, please take some time to share this on Facebook. If you're on Facebook, and get your friends to join as well, because we're just getting started. And I am going to pass it back to Liz now to talk about our speakers. Thanks for all the pluses.
I am so excited by who we have joining us today. We have Sarah Burton, who is going to be sharing our strategy with you, Sam Sukatan and Scott Cooper, who are volunteers on our national political committee, who are helping us with all things related to all elections across the country, supporting our chapters and groups everywhere to endorse and elect candidates up and down the ballot. And then I'm really grateful to get to know more about Anna and Ellie with you as they share their experiences working this cycle with us to organize our phone banks and call voters. So, and then I really want to appreciate that Katie and Randy are people who are working day to day on our program, and they are organizers extraordinaire. So gratitude to you for joining us to create this community together. So I want to kick us off and get us going with a little bit of why I'm here, just so that you can start thinking about your why, because it's so critical to be able to communicate with others, to start thinking about how you're going to talk to others is by reconciling in your head why I'm here talking to people. Why does my voice matter? I actually got asked to share my story in our email that we sent out to recruit people. And it was, in going through that, I just realized that I'm coming up on 30 years of having been doing electoral work. I got started working for a congressman who was from my part of Connecticut, the quiet corner of Connecticut where I grew up. He got started as a hippie from a college town who went to the state legislature, used to hitchhike to the state house, and got elected into Congress as part of the post-Nixon Watergate moment. Some folks in this audience might remember this kind of history. It's surprising to me that I have been doing this for so long. And what's also surprising to me is that congressman was in a race. He was targeted. And what I think was sort of the first collective action of organized hate in Congress in 1994, there was the Contract with America. Newt Gingrich organized people to start saying like that they stood for certain principles, and the congressman I was working for was on a top 10 target list. I was a volunteer coordinator. I worked to get people to show up to call and canvass. And the people I could always rely on were Sam's mom's friends, that was the candidate, labor union folks, and the Sierra Club, both volunteers and staff. And in the end, that election, we ended up winning. We thought we won by 3,000 votes, but a machine was double counted. Then we went to the next day a recount where we were up by 4 and down by 5 and up by 1 and down by 3. And it just was so clear to me that every single thing that I had done or not done could have made a difference. When we were down by 2, it's like, how much more could I have done? When we were up by 4, it's like, yes, everything I did. My mom voted, I voted. And we ended up going through a whole cycle, winning by 21 votes after going through a recount. And then it was still potential that the House of Representatives could have decided that my representative didn't actually win. Again, sort of the beginning of this whole questioning of the legitimacy of elections. And so it's just seems to me that almost 30 years later, those tactics that I experienced in that election in 1994 have only become more and more important. And I think it's not necessarily even about party. It's about people who are for the people, by the people, and people who are there for power. And so I just am committed to being able to think about what I need to do to counter hate and to bring hope and care and community. And what I find is that when I've been making these calls, sure, there's the folks that don't have the time or tell me it's a wrong number. But when I do connect with someone, they're just as concerned and ready to talk with me, asking me how to like spell the name of the candidate, because they know that this election is really important and they need to, and they can appreciate when we say that we can't just vote for the people that we know, we got to vote for everyone. And we particularly want to vote for people that Sierra Club volunteers and our local communities have said are critical to ensure like that the issues that matter to them, people get what they need. I think people can certainly reflect on the fact that Michigan needs to be certain that they've got legislators who can help people in their communities across that state get what they need. Scott's going to say a little bit more about Minnesota, what's at stake there. But what's at stake for all of us is the way in which these state legislatures can potentially turn the tide on democracy. And in these races that we are showing up for, we're really concerned about the state legislature staying focused and controlled, managed by people who care about people and representing people in a democracy. And so that's what's at stake for me. I'm really curious what's at stake for you and whether or not you're willing to join us. So we're going to drop a link in the chat. We're going to ask you to sign up in a significant way for shifts from now until November. Maybe you say, I'm going to do it every Saturday. That's my personal commitment. Then we're going to ask you to maybe think about just joining us in the next hour and getting started. And then asking you to also share your commitment with your friends and invite them to join you. Join you on a Saturday. Join us some night. People can bring snacks. I saw one of our people joining us on the call was talking about the kind of like that they were eating curry. There's plenty of opportunity to just like invite some friends, chit chat while you're on Zoom and make some calls. So that's the invitation. So excited you're all here, and just really want to encourage you to consider joining us and making these calls. I'm going to turn it over to Sarah, who is going to share with us a little bit more about those strategy.
Thank you, Liz, and thank you for sharing a little bit of your story. My name is Sarah Burton. I'm the National Political Director. I use she, her pronouns. I'm very excited to be talking to you all today. Like Liz said, I'm going to talk a little bit about the strategy. I also wanted to share a little bit about my story too. I think hearing about what brought us each here individually and the collective goals that we now have is just so powerful. And I love when folks share their own personal stories and what brought them to the work. So if you'll indulge me briefly, in a past life, I was a public defender. I went to law school, became a lawyer. I wanted to make the world a better place. I completely believe in that work. It is critically important. It is also individual by individual. You have many, many cases, but you're working one person at a time. And I started to realize that if I really wanted to change systems of power and the things that I thought should be better in the world, politics was a way to really have an impact on that. And that leads into our strategy for this cycle. We are really focused on the local races where our issues are on the ballot, environmental issues are on the ballot. We can make an impact that will have huge repercussions in terms of clean water, clean air, renewables. Sierra Club Independent Action can be the messenger to voters who don't know the big impacts that local races can have. People don't always know what those offices are, who to vote for, and that is where we can come in. And the races that we chose for this cycle, they matter for those local communities, but they don't just matter there. When we elect people to act on climate, that can have a ripple effect on neighboring states across the country. We can pass policies in one place that can stand as an example for other places. So we're focused on those places where the issues are critical, we're building on the work of past cycles, and we're looking ahead to 2024 and beyond, and the policy changes that we want to see. Places where there's a real possibility of electing climate champions and where it's going to be very close races, and that we can be the voice to help make sure voters fill out their entire ballot. Like I said, some people don't know about these local offices and they don't complete the full ballot, and just doing a phone call and telling them this is why this is important, here's what's on the line, can really make a difference there. So currently, right now, for now through Election Day, our top priority states are Michigan and Minnesota. So you'll hear more about those in a bit. And the other thing I just wanted to say is we are focused on the long-term power building. That is a key part of our strategy. These off-year elections, like 2022, are critical. And many people vote in the presidential, but they don't know how important these races are. They don't give as much attention to these off-cycle years. We know at Sierra Club, there are no actual off-cycle years. Every single year is important. Every single year we're working. We do not think of our work as one cycle at a time or discrete. It is all connected to the work that we do at Sierra Club. So we're focused on building long-term power, recruiting and training volunteers who can continue the work after Election Day to advocate for our issues, to hold electeds accountable. And like I said, who will be there in 2024 and beyond for all the work that we continue to do as part of the Sierra Club. So I am going to pass it back over to Liz, and I just wanted to say thank you all for being here today. Really exciting to see all of you. I'm sorry I have to just stop by. My parents are actually in town from across the country, but it was really important to me to talk to you all about our strategy, and thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Sarah. I wonder if folks resonate with what Sarah was sharing, if you can put an exclamation mark in the chat. And just a reminder that we know that lots of folks on this call might have other issues and projects that you care about, but we're going to make space for the topic that we're talking about, which is the elections. Appreciate everyone and what they could share, but ask that we kind of make space for talking about elections in this moment. Okay, so I just wanted to say again, we are looking for lots of phone bankers. Randy is going to, Randy, maybe like come in and say a little bit about how many phone bankers we're looking for. Oh, I'm not sure if Randy heard me, but.
Sorry, I was on mute.
There we go.
Yeah, we have 22 phone bank shifts between now and actually on Election Day. And what I'm figuring is if everybody on this call signs up for 8 phone banks, we'll reach our goal of about 50 people per phone bank is what we go for signups. So I'll talk more about that later, but I just want to highlight that right now.
Thank you so much, Randy. So like 8 shifts, that's a lot. It would be great to invite some friends to make that feel more fun.
And Liz, just to note, 8 shifts is like one day in the next 25.
One day in the next 25. Yes. Thank you so much. The time is now. And if you're wondering if you can do our phone bank, so you have some thoughts about accommodations or needs that you have, if you were to join us at the top of the hour during our phone bank, we can identify whether there's options for us to support you. So I just want to note that in the chat. So it's an option to like try on our phone banks right after this call, and then learn more about organizing by going to any of these links that we're sharing in the chat. And so with that, I want to invite Sam Sukatan to share a little bit more of their experience and why this matters.
Hi, can everyone hear me okay? Perfect. So hi, my name's Sam. I use pronouns he, they. I'm calling from Los Angeles, California right now. The historic land is the Taviam and Tonga people. I grew up about 60 miles east. Some of you on the stream who have excellent taste in music will remember the song Route 66. Some of you will remember there was a terrible shooting in that city in 2015. Most of you won't know that we are a major victim of air pollution. If you're African American or Latino in San Bernardino or Riverside counties, you are 2 to 5 times more likely to die of a cardiovascular or respiratory disease. We're America's closet. 40% of all American ocean-bound trade comes to the ports of LA and Long Beach. It gets on trains, it gets on trucks, and it comes to us to be reconsolidated, repackaged, put in warehouses, and moved out to the rest of the country. Actually, yesterday, Amazon workers went on strike in San Bernardino at the international airport, not too far from where I grew up. So a lot of things going on. I got into politics because I knew that the future of my state, the future of my country would be dependent on how we answer the questions that places like San Bernardino bring up. And I saw some of you sign in from places like Denver, places like Kansas City, places like I see Portland, Oregon, San Jose. These aren't really big cities, right? Like we think about our DCs and our New Yorks and our Los Angeleses. Some of you may have seen the New York Times this week. I don't want to think about Los Angeles after what happened last Sunday, but a lot of the future of where we go as a country, as a people, as a planet happens in these places that maybe they come up in old songs, maybe they come up when something terrible happens, but most Americans don't really think about them. That's where I'm from. I got pulled back home. So a lot of us move out to go to school, go to work, find jobs. I was working for the Sierra Club on oil drilling in Los Angeles. Must have been 2013, 2014. And then in 2016, I got called. A friend of mine said, "Hey, there's this candidate running for state legislature, California. It's like 80 people. Don't tell me you know who your state legislator is. I don't believe you. I barely knew. Named Eloise Gomez Reyes. She's running for Congress. She's running for Assembly. I was like, who's Eloise? I'd heard the name before. She ran for Congress. She lost. She lived up the street from my grandma. Crazy to me. Like same city. Very strange. Like I had run by that house so much when I was in marching band when I was a kid. I was like, oh, that's cool. Yeah. She's running for office. What's the deal? Apparently, remember, we talked about warehouses. We talked about big gas plants. Talked about pollution. That our assembly member, Cheryl Brown, had been voting. Had not been really sympathetic to environmental or public health concerns. She's been really supportive of the oil industry. So folks called her Chevron Cheryl Brown. For those of you who aren't in California, Chevron is our ExxonMobil, our local kind of oil drilling company. And they're like, the area, some of the young folks, the young folks that have been organizing since the shooting, folks that have been organizing against gun violence, because San Bernardino used to be a very violent city when I was younger. One of my old middle school friends had worked for Eloise before. He's like, yo, you want to come down and help out? I'm like, yeah, sure. You were at the Sierra Club, right? I'm like, yeah, sure. Let me see what we can put together. We had kind of youth organizing programs. Some of the older heads in the club would know about this. At San Bernardino Valley College, at College of the Deserts. We had some folks at in the Coachella Valley. For those of you that know, Coachella is where the music festival is, but it's also historically farm worker country. Folks grow grapes out there. Folks grow lettuce. And so there's this long tradition of Latino farm workers to the point where Cesar Chavez actually had an office in the city of Coachella. So a lot of young folks, second, third generation farm workers, kids doing climate organizing, doing organizing around the Salton Sea, which is a major environmental hazard because of the air quality problems there. And I came home. We were talking about this campaign, and a lot of young folks folks that grew up like me, like grew up in San Bernardino, like they're like, nah, I grew up on East Street. I went to San Bernardino High School. I went to Coachella. I went to Coachella Valley High School, and they're, universally, somebody they love has asthma. Universally, they're like, hey, there's not a lot of good jobs out here. It's just the warehouses. We don't know what we're gonna do. And they were hungry for some change, and they said, all right, if Eloise is the wind of change, and they use the slogan, it still sticks to me, that we feel the breeze with Eloise. We're gonna come out, we're gonna knock shifts, we're gonna knock doors. So we had a big environmental canvas about 2 years ago today. I think it was a Saturday. This is how I remember it. I drove out to Coachella. It was about 60 miles. Stayed at my sister's. Drove all the way out with a caravan of Sierra Club volunteers, folks like you. We picked folks up. We picked these high schools, because these are high school kids. They don't have cars. It's like 80, 90 miles. Drove them along I-10 all the way back to San Bernardino, stopped at the community college, picked up some more folks, went out on turf in Colton and Grand Terrace in Ontario, knocked doors, did 2 full shifts. 2 shifts. We did 2 shifts with about 3-4 dozen people. I think it was like 50 people all told. So like, yeah, give or take 50. So like 4 dozen people, 4 dozen young folks all told. I think we hit 1,500, 2,000 doors, something like that. And usually when you're on doors or when you're calling, it's about a 10% return rate. So we had 150, 200 conversations for sure, independent of everyone else working. That's just young folks, environmental mafia knocking. We were nervous. California has a jungle primary. Eloise had finished 10 points behind Cheryl Brown in June. We're just like, oh man, oil's going to come in really big to defend Chevron Cheryl. We're super scared. We don't know what's going to happen, but we need to do this because we have warehouses popping up like mushrooms after rain. We have the Mountain View Generating Station, which is the filthiest natural gas power plant in California. Like, we have 2-3 generations now looking at backbreaking labor in 110-degree warehouses. We're looking at their kids having asthma. We're looking at their grandkids having asthma. We're looking at people losing 10, 20 years on their lives. And this is before we even knew Amazon was going to open another warehouse right next to a church and an elementary school right next to the San Bernardino airport. Now, that happened in 2019. And we're just like, okay, we got to get ready for this. If this is going to happen, this is going to happen. But we need to make sure that we are defending ourselves, defending our planet, defending against pollution, because we're going to catch it first and worst. I mean, my dad worked in those warehouses. Our neighbor's son worked in those warehouses, like broke his back. He's on permanent disability. So like, we're like, we have to do something about this. We have to knock these doors. We have to win this. I remember this because this Saturday, and I remember it's about 2 years ago today, that I drove all those folks home. It was really close. And I remember it because it was the night my grandmother died. It was the night my grandmother died. Eloise was very kind. She closed the office. Then the next week, the entire community came out to bury my grandmother. I didn't know Eloise knew my grandmother because my grandma used to walk around in Grand Terrace. He's like, yeah, no, I remember. I didn't know you two were related because she has my mom's name. And so we found kind of like I said, this is where I grew up. There are kind of layers of community that we hadn't heard, that we hadn't imagined, that we hadn't seen before. And, grandma died. I was struggling. The campaign was, we're not sure. We're not sure if we're going to win this for our community. And remember, this is election night 2016. And I don't need to remind you exactly how harrowing that night was for so many people, for so many reasons. And we're watching the other races. Everybody's freaking out. Oh my gosh, what's going to happen? It's about midnight, maybe like 12:30. And we see the numbers for Eloise, and she's not down, she's up. And she's not up, 1 point. She's not up 2 points. She ends up winning. She ends up winning by 10 percentage points. We had made up a 10-point loss to a 10-point gain. It is the first time that we had knocked off an incumbent in the region since Chevron Cheryl won 4 years before. Nobody was expecting it. It was an earthquake. It was an absolute earthquake. Everyone's like, oh, oil's going to win this one. Oil's going to win this one. The utility is going to win this one. And no, a bunch of environmentalists and kids, a bunch of high school kids won this one. And now, it's been 6 years. A lot of the folks that I worked with on that race, I'll name some of them: James Albert, Gracie Torres, Kareem Gongora. Their appointed officials or elected officials now. Kareem was on the planning commission for San Bernardino County, so he's the one reviewing where warehouses go. Gracie Torres is on our water district board down in Riverside. Maha Rizvi, who was knocking doors, worked for Eloise, and now her mom is running for assembly down in Riverside County. And Eloise herself, well, California passed 9 climate bills this year, spent $54 billion on climate investments. That's clean energy, that's zero emission vehicles, that's offshore wind, that's extreme heat resilience for communities like mine, a goods movement training center for warehouse workers. We had a carbon disclosure bill that failed by 1 vote in the assembly. And we're going to bring it back, I think. And Eloise is majority leader. Eloise is the second most powerful assembly member in the state of California. Eloise is steering all of these things out of love for her community, knowing that it's the climate movement that got her started. And so the first executive director of the Sierra Club, David Brower, said politicians are weather vanes. I like to think of it as windmills because windmills turn and they actually give power. Our job is to be the wind. Our job is to make the wind blow. Sorry, that's the quote. Politicians are like weather vanes. It's our job to make the wind blow. And so I'm asking you today, are you ready to make the wind blow? Because windmills don't create clean energy unless those turbines move, which means we need a lot of wind and we need it real fast. We need to move away from fossil fuels in this decade. We need to talk to as many voters as we can. And we need 1, 2, 1 million Eloises in 50 different states. Are you ready to make the wind blow today?
Thanks so much, Sam. That's not the first time I've heard that story, but every time I hear it, it's very powerful. And I just wanted to put this back up again. We need you to help us out to reach these goals, to get these local folks elected. We have 22 phone banks left. As I said, if you sign up for 8 shifts, each shift is about 3 hours. So you have 24 hours of phone banking in the next 24 days. I'm saying 24. I know I'm going to get comments. There's only 23 days to election day, but we are calling on election day as well. So we hope you will join us for that. And you can actually join one immediately after this call. You can sign up and go to a phone bank with our colleagues are setting up right now. And you'll see some of us over there as well.
And I want to let you know, I would join that call, but I'm marrying somebody today. I'm an officiant, so I need to sneak out. I'm actually my suit is hanging on this door right now, and I want to apologize, but I want to let all of you know. The minute I'm done with this, I'm going to go back and start knocking doors and making calls tomorrow. Liz is not going to let me out of this. I'm going to see you out there on turf. Good luck. Let's go win. Thank you so much for taking this time on a Saturday morning.
Thanks so much, Sam. Like I said, we've got phone bank right after this, and then if you're so inclined and have some experience, or might want to gain some experience, we're gonna talk about this a little bit later. But you can sign up to help us run those phone bank and become a Sierra Club organizer, like some of the folks you'll meet coming up here. But right now, we want to turn it over to Scott Cooper, who is going to talk to us a bit. One of the states we're focused on is Minnesota, and so he's going to kind of lead us through what's going on in Minnesota and talk about his story up there. Welcome, Scott.
Thanks, Randy. Thanks for being here, everybody. It is exciting to be this close to Election Day for those of us that get excited about electoral work. And it's certainly exciting here in Minnesota. So I'm in St. Paul, Minnesota, which is where the North Star chapter of the Sierra Club is. So that's my home chapter. And I first got involved in the Sierra Club really through electoral politics. I know a lot of people come in because they, maybe without experience doing election work, they come in because of a particular environmental issue they're excited about that the Sierra Club's working on. I actually came in through electoral work. I had worked for years on political campaigns. I'd worked for a couple members of Congress. And I chose to put volunteer time in at the Sierra Club for a couple reasons. I want to just talk about those reasons before I talk about Minnesota. First of all, any of you that do volunteer activities, right? You know that there are places where you feel like you're not very appreciated, where people are like, yeah, come and do this thing, and now come and do more of this thing, whether it's phone banking or whatever. And I have often felt like that on political campaigns, like you're just wanted for your time, but you're not really appreciated as a person, and your leadership isn't wanted, your opinions aren't wanted. And the Sierra Club is sort of the opposite. I love doing volunteer work with the Sierra Club because they want us engaged, not just for our labor, but because we're the ones who set the agenda. We're the ones who decide, what the work is going to look like. And if you've spent much time in the Sierra Club, you've probably had this experience of being invited to take on more and more responsibility, to take on more and more leadership roles. And that was certainly my experience. I started off doing political phone banks, and then was soon asked to serve on the political committee. So I was endorsing candidates and screening candidates, and later I was recruited to run to serve on the executive committee of our chapter, and later I was the chapter chair for a couple of years. I think that's pretty typical of a healthy organization that really has that sort of ladder of engagement and appreciates its volunteers and wants volunteer leadership, not just volunteer time. So that's one of the reasons that I love being a volunteer with the Sierra Club. And the other is that I feel like my time is being put to good use. Like Sierra Club is effective. We aren't spinning our wheels. I'm not like making phone calls into a void without having an impact. I really feel like the Sierra Club is impactful and efficient in how it puts volunteer labor to work, and we get results. And I appreciate that. So my time is put to good use, and I'm respected as a person, not just as a somebody giving labor. So that's why I have said yes when I've had the opportunity to put in more and more time in different volunteer roles. And a few years ago, I was had the opportunity to join the National Sierra Club political team and do work beyond my own chapter here, and really help shape the national political program and the ways in which it supports both national political work, but also supports chapters in doing their political work, which I think is incredibly important. And so I've been volunteering with the Sierra Club political team for a while. But I will say most of my time with the Sierra Club, my volunteer work has been very focused on Minnesota. And most of my electoral campaign work with the Sierra Club has been focused on Minnesota candidates, our own endorsed candidates for state offices. But I also have always appreciated the opportunity to make phone calls into other parts of the country where there was, a really tight race or a big opportunity for a win, because that wasn't always the thing that was happening here in my own state, right? So, and some of you are in places that are really great, in really great shape. You have great elected officials, and they're in secure seats, and your work is maybe a little bit less important in your own neighborhood than it is someplace else. And some of you are in places where it's not the target opportunity right now. It's not the place where the big win is going to happen. And I felt like that here in Minnesota. I mean, honestly, people look at Minnesota sometimes and think, well, that's not the most important place, because it's we have a reputation as having really environmentally friendly elected officials. We tend to vote a certain way in presidential elections, right? But in our state politics, we actually tend to be quite divided. We flip back and forth between the parties in control of both bodies of the House and the governor's office regularly. And this year in Minnesota, we have a particularly important opportunity for environmental policy. The Minnesota House of Representatives is controlled by a great great majority that is very focused on climate and other environmental policies. We have a governor who is not a champion for us, but is persuadable, is fairly friendly, and can be brought around. And we have a Senate that by a very narrow majority is pretty bad, like really, really bad. And so we have this chance to flip the Minnesota Senate control to be in the hands of some really great leaders who are in the minority right now. It's so close. We just have to flip a few state Senate seats, and the Sierra Club chapter here has done a great job of figuring out what are the target races, who are those candidates that we need to focus on, because they will be our champions and our friends if we get them into office. So just those little, we have 67 state Senate seats, and just flipping a couple of them to flip the majority and put the Senate majority leader's office in the hands of a different mindset around environmental issues is a huge opportunity. So I want to thank, from here in Minnesota, I want to thank all of you who are doing phone banking, who have been doing phone banking for the Sierra Club. Sierra Club has made Minnesota, along with Michigan, a top target this year because of the opportunities we see here. I want to thank all of you who are doing phone banking, who are maybe about to do phone banking, haven't done it yet, but are going to sign up, because you are going to have a huge impact on what's possible when our Sierra Club volunteer lobbyists are showing up at the Capitol next year and the year after, asking for the policies that we want to protect our green spaces, to protect our air and our water, to fight to stop climate change, the horrible effects of climate change that we're experiencing. And that experience, I've been a professional lobbyist for nonprofit organizations, and I'll say that experience of walking into an unfriendly legislative environment and trying to like bang your head against the wall, begging people who just don't share your viewpoint and don't care about your issues, and begging them to do the right thing. That is painful, heartbreaking work. And when you see allies take control, and you have that opportunity to walk into those halls and instead have conversations about the path forward, and like what's the best way to do it, not like do we have any hope of doing it, but what's the best way to do it, that is joyful work. And that's the work that we want to be doing at the Sierra Club. And it's only possible if we take advantage of these next few weeks here and actually flip that majority. So that's what I'm asking you to help out with. We appreciate it. We thank you for your time, and hopefully Minnesota will look a little bit different, and we'll be able to do some great work here in the coming years with your help. And I think with that, I'm going to turn it over to Katie.
Hello, everyone. Thank you again so much for joining us this afternoon or morning. And thank you, Scott, so much for sharing your story and why the work that we are doing is so important. I do want to encourage everyone to go in the chat and sign up for some calls. Really, every single conversation that we make with a voter really makes a difference, but we'll be sharing some more information about that soon. So my name is Katie Meyer. I am a distributed organizer with the Sierra Club. I've been with the Sierra Club a couple months, but I've been doing politics and organizing for about 10 years. I started getting involved in 2012 during the presidential election when I was 17 years old. I was not old enough to vote yet, but I was old enough to get involved. I was old enough to make phone calls and organize phone banks on my high school campus. I continued to do that, and ever since then have stayed involved politically. A huge reason of why I'm involved is because I am a member of the LGBT community, and my partner is trans. And right now, we are seeing attacks on my rights and my partner's rights and access to healthcare and choice all over the country. And many of the same people are also trying to destroy our environment and our communities. So there is a lot at stake this election, not just in terms of the environment, but in terms of our democracy and people's basic human rights. Would like to, I've been doing politics about 10 years, and I've done campaigns at the presidential, local, and state level, and I've seen how close some of these races can get. And I've seen how just a few phone calls or few doors knocked can really make or break a campaign. And my favorite thing about doing each of these campaigns is really just the connections that you make of people all coming together with a shared purpose, with shared values, and really trying to make a difference and build power together. And I am really excited to see just so many of you on this call, so many people giving their time, their energy, their love to this movement. And it really gives me hope. And I just want to invite you all to be a part of this, because we've built like such an amazing community all together, but we are really now at the final stretch. So I really want to invite you all to join us, to sign up for shifts, to sign up for our organizing orientation. We're going to talk a little bit about that in a little bit. But I cannot emphasize how important this election is and why we need to win each of these local races in these states, because a lot of the issues that we care about are made or not made at the local level. So I would like to bring up one of our phone banking volunteers, Ellie, who's been phone banking with us the last few weeks and also in 2020. And I would love to hear from her experience making calls. You're on mute.
Ellie, you're on mute.
Sorry. I want to agree with something that Scott said, that calling with the Sierra Club, you are not just a worker bee, but you're listened to. Because the first time I made phone calls 2 weeks ago with Sierra Club, some of the folks in the group made a suggestion to change the script to say something more. And sure enough, the next time I got on, the Sierra Club folks had changed the script. They listened to the workers. So like a lot of people, I think I was really horrified and upset after the 2016 election. And by 2020, I was totally disgusted with Trump's out and out lies and horrid and hateful behavior. And so we had done a lot. In 2016, my husband and I paid for a 1/4-page ad against Trump with a quote from Max Lucado, how he wouldn't vote for Trump. And so we did what we knew we could do. But in 2020, I found out about phone banks. And so we did the regular things. But the thing that I thought was the most effective and certainly gave me the best response, that I knew that what I'd done was useful and the most hope and a lot of joy, was phone banking. So I Sierra Club phone banked in Florida. And one of the things that happened that was cool was I had a number of folks who weren't sure where they voted. Maybe they changed things, I don't know. They weren't sure where to go to vote. They weren't sure how to get an absentee ballot. And the Sierra Club had given us links that I could just give them this short URL and then they could look it up. And I felt really useful, like what I'd done was good. Another time there was a lady who, my age, and she had an adult child who was severely disabled, and she lived in a place where she was surrounded by MAGA supporters, and she really appreciated just having someone call and talk with her about the election that was coming up. And even the brief phone calls where someone says, I already voted, I voted straight Democrat, are really exciting because it's fun. It's really fun to say to someone, "Oh, you're awesome. Oh, thanks so much," or "Good for you," and give them that brief. But you can tell that they appreciate the connection. So that's why I love phone banking. I feel like I'm doing something. I've seen that it really works, and I love that connection with the people, and that I feel like I'm making them feel good too. So in 2020, we phone banked with 3 different organizations, and it was the Sierra Club that had it all together. As far as it was efficient, my phone number was protected, and it was it was done really well. So I was looking forward for the last 2 years to phone bank with Sierra Club again. Then January 6th happened, and I was really looking forward to it. So um, I was anxious to get on and phone bank, and glad to do it. So thank y'all for considering this. It's a wonderful thing.
Thank you so much, Ellie. I just want to really appreciate the work you do, and Anna, who you all meet in a minute, and Scott, and all the volunteers that and volunteer organizers that we work with. I just want to share a little bit about myself, and why I'm here, and what brought me to the Sierra Club many years ago. I've been with the Sierra Club for almost 20 years now, and I first came in to run a field program for during the Bush Carry race many years ago. And one of the things that came out of that, and something that I really value, is so we can, I've helped out in many political cycles, many candidates over the years. One thing I've found out is that we cannot necessarily, just because we elect them, doesn't mean we can depend on them doing the right thing. I've learned that hard lesson many times. But one thing I can count on is that every cycle that I will meet some new people and build relationships with them and help to just kind of build that community of organizers and keep on going. So I've come to the conclusion that elections are basically, in my mind, tools to bring us together, because so many people want to get involved, right? And so it's a real opportunity to meet new people, to start forging those relationships, to gain some skills, and to keep growing that community where we're going to push for progress. And just, a friend of mine once said, it's not really a revolution, it's an evolution. And so we're evolving and keeping to build that community spirit and the love that Liz talked about with each other, to keep making progress on our issues. And part of what I've really valued about this campaign that I've been working on is getting to know the folks like Ellie and Anna, who you'll meet in a minute, and building those relationships with our what we call our volunteer organizers that are helping us run these phone banks. So right now, I'd like to turn it over to Anna to talk about her role in that, and where you can go to learn more about that.
Thank you, Randy. So yeah, just like Ellie, I started volunteering for the 2020 election because I think we saw what happens when we let other people, like when we assume that other people are gonna do all the important work. We leave it to others to do knock on doors, make the calls, and vote. And I guess I didn't want to have the same regrets in the 2020 election, and I wanted to know that I did everything I could to actually make an impact. And it was an amazing experience then. I really connected to other volunteers and with the staff. So in between the elections, I worked and I was involved with my local chapter. But I live in a pretty blue state. So for these midterm elections, I was pretty stressed out about it, like I'm sure most of you all are as well. And I wanted to make an impact and make sure that it was the biggest impact I could make. Um, so thankfully, I'm pretty confident about the races locally to me in my state. Um, and I knew that with Sierra Club being one of the oldest, most impactful organizations and being nationwide, that I could trust them to choose the races where we could have the most impact possible. And that's why it's so great of the Sierra Club being nationwide, um, and really wanted to do as much as we can to protect the environment. Um, so this year, not only am I phone banking like in 2020, but I'm also a volunteer organizer. So I get to help run, um, organize the phone banks, do some of the give the context and information before we jump into the phones. And it was great to meet and work with folks around the country that I wouldn't have met otherwise. So it made me realize that no matter where we're coming from, how we look like, we all want to be on a healthy planet where our communities and our families really can thrive. The news always shows that the world is on fire, both literally and figuratively. But when I do the calls and I work with volunteers and I see so many people putting their time to make a difference, it kind of gives me hope um, that will, you know, that things are not as bad as they are and that we can move towards a brighter future. And really, being an organizer is not as scary as it seems like. I get to practice a bunch of skills in a very safe place, like public speaking or other skills that will help me all through my life beyond just the fun bank. And I know that I have the support from the staff and people like Randy to be able to continue develop that and just have fun with it as I continue to grow. Um, yeah, so I added the Wednesday phone bank to my Google Calendar every Wednesday all the way through the election because I know I will sleep better knowing that we did everything we can, to get the best results possible this election cycle. So thank you all for joining us and, giving your part for a brighter future.
Wow. I'm so appreciative of what everyone was able to share. If you've heard something that resonated with you, or you're thinking, yeah, I'm with Ellie or I'm with Anna in wanting to be able to take on a task that will help you to feel better, less anxious, that's because you have the capacity, because your state is secure, or you just want to be able to show up in community. Just put a little comment in the chat. And I noticed that one of our participants is already heading off to our phone bank. So Jennifer, if we can put up the slide deck so that we can show people just how to go about that. So this link here, sc.org/voter calls. If you go to that link, you can sign up right now, and you will be able to, on that Saturday, October 15th shift, sign up there and then go to your email, and you'll have the link so that you can fly on over with us to this phone bank. So we have other organizers and volunteers waiting and standing by. Looking forward to having people join them. And just want to appreciate everyone who joined us today, again, from YouTube and Facebook, wherever you are around the country. Thank all of the folks that joined us for this call and helped to prepare for this call, and also our behind the scenes person, Jennifer McCharron. I really appreciate everyone today, and thank you all. Hope to see you over at our phone bank happening now, or on another Saturday phone bank. My commitment is to see everyone who signs up on a Saturday from now until November. Thank you so much.
Thank you all. And I just want to mention that this recording will be up after this. So if you want to share this on Facebook, this will be here. If you like your friends, oh my God, I just saw this great presentation and heard from these great volunteers. Please make sure you share it with your friends, because that will help us get to our goals as well, to get them to join us.
All right. And with that, we're gonna end our broadcast, but thank you again and take care.